Ago, we took a voyage around the town, starting out with Puget Sound, and I was just remarking to somebody here that I thought it was a lot easier 20 years ago because things were in black and white. Now it's in color, and so it's a lot more complicated, to put these things together. But then realizing also that that was 20 years ago, and I think I was a little bit younger then. And anybody can tell stories about 20 years ago and what you're doing. How many people here were on Bainbridge Island 20 years ago? Good. And so other people have come here, and quite a number of people. So over the 20 years that we've been involved, I've had the opportunity to work with Kathy Fletcher. I mean, it's been a real pleasure. And right now, I'm also going to have the great opportunity of working with Tom Bancroft. So at this point right now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring Kathy up here. And Kathy can reminisce a little bit, but we won't let her go on too long. But it's been really quite a trip.
Thanks, Mike. And thanks all of you for coming. It's great to see all of you, some old friends and new here today. 20 years has been a long enough time to really see changes, both good and bad, in our region. And one of the things that we've noticed as we've traveled around the Sound, visiting a lot of places that we visited 20 years ago and thinking about all the things that have happened, has actually been to see the progress that we've all made together. And it's actually been more upbeat than I really anticipated, because I think day to day, as we fight our battles, and there are many, we can get a little bit down because there's so much to do and so many ways that things can go wrong. But you think about it. Look what's happened at that creosote site just across the way. And that's kind of emblematic of what's been happening around the Sound. A lot of things have been cleaned up. A lot of things have been restored. A lot of things have come into people's consciousness. I was thinking about the fact that 20 years ago, and certainly 25 years ago, you could fit all the people that were concerned about Puget Sound and were doing something about it probably into a room smaller than this, maybe half this size. And we all knew each other too. I mean, it was like a very small band of people who had really focused on this issue. Well, now, you couldn't even name, no one could name all of the people, the projects, the organizations, and the efforts that are focused on protecting and restoring the health of our Puget Sound. And that, I think that's maybe the biggest thing that has changed in 20 years' time. There are many battles ahead. The fact that we've done a lot to prevent and improve our ability to respond to oil spills doesn't mean that that's not a threat today. It still is, and there's more that we need to do. The Gulf oil spill is certainly a reminder of that, but Christine Loftus and others have worked so hard to make sure that this state is doing all we can to prevent and respond to oil spills. And the bill that passed this session was really one of the only good pieces of environmental legislation that got through. There were just the tiniest handful of things that where we made progress. So, looking ahead, we still need to address the fundamental issue of how all of us are going to live together here around Puget Sound without killing. And that fundamental issue of sustainability is the thing we have to tackle, and it has to do with how we build and how we rebuild and how we develop and how we transport ourselves and the fuels that we use. It has to do with our whole approach to living in the Puget Sound region. But it's too big when you describe it that way. So we have to pick out the pieces and make the steps of progress. And I think that may be one of the best lessons of looking back, is that incrementally doing good things does really add up. And so if you can't get it all done at once, and you can still get it done by tackling it bit by bit by bit by bit. That doesn't mean we should lower our sights in terms of what we're trying to do, but it does mean that we have to keep at it and not necessarily feel like we're inadequate to the task because we can't solve everything all at once. So those are some things that we've been thinking about as we've reflected on our past and looked ahead to our future. And I personally want to thank everybody for what you do to protect and restore Puget Sound and for your support of people for Puget Sound over these many years. As I enter the next chapter of my career, I am feeling really good because People for Puget Sound is in excellent hands, not only all of your hands, all of our members, and all of our staff, but especially because our new Executive Director, Tom Bancroft, is going to be a terrific leader for our organization and for our region. So I'd like to call Tom up to say a few words. Tom Bancroft.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, everybody. It's so good to be here and be with you and have a chance to meet all of you. And I'd just like to thank you all for your commitment you've given to Puget Sound and people from Puget Sound. It's really great to be part of this organization. You know, last Sunday I came over here to Bainbridge and went kayaking with Mike Moyer, who lives over here. This is my third time I've been in a kayak. And we went down to the southern part of Puget Sound and we kayaked across the Blake Island. And we got down there early on Sunday morning and we're starting to unload the kayak. And I heard this barking noise out there. I suddenly realized it was sea lion. I go, that's sea lion. And Mike looks at me and goes, yeah, that's sea lion. But for me, it was just a new experience. It was really exciting. We got into the kayak and started across there, and the first thing that popped up in front of us was a couple of harbor seals. And so that was pretty cool. You know, being down there that low on the water, suddenly having a head come up and look at you, 20 or 30 yards in front of you was just spectacular. And then we went around the island and came back across. And a couple things that were neat in going around the island. One, just all the people that were anchored around the island enjoying it. You just saw how important high-quality environment is for our quality of life. And it just really brought that kind of message home to me. And then what was really fascinating for me was to see that interface between the marine environment and the shore and see the changes in the size of the sands along. You have to think about sand on the shore, but here, you know, the sand pebbles are like stepping around. So, you know, that change in that size of that sand as you went to different places around that, that was really neat. And we passed over some eelgrass beds, and I've been reading about eelgrass and herring and reproduction of herring here, and so to see that firsthand, and then we saw a few small salmon go by in one place. It was just a really enlightening day to get a chance to be out and see the sound firsthand like that and enjoy your island here. You know, it's been exciting too to learn about all the conservation successes here that this group has had and how it's done in collaboration with lots of groups. The first weekend I was here, I went up to Union Slough, which is up in Snohomish County. They had a work day up there. And the first thing that just struck me when I pulled up there were 200 volunteers out. There were 200 people that were committing their day to pulling weeds and hauling mulch in order to work with this restoration. And it was a place that Puget Sound has been committed to since 2007. It's a place that the Port of Everett has been committed to, I think it's about 2004 in a restoration. Really great restoration. You could see there's years of commitment there taking place. But what really was even more exciting was I was chatting with the commissioner from the port there, and he told me, he said, we were so excited about seeing this. We bought 300 acres on the other side of Interstate 5. We would tear down the dike next over there and restore that. And then the town of Everett like that, so they bought another farm a little bit farther on up in the river. They're going to go through the restoration. And what I again saw there, Kathy was speaking a little bit to this, you start in one place, and then you create that domino effect. You get other people excited and other people committed, and it just starts to go from there. And that's how we make that kind of thing happen. And it's a great story of success. You know, the other thing, last year I had to spend a lot of time on the Gulf oil spill, so I spent a lot of time down on the Gulf. And it's, you know, one of the, I think, lessons learned from that is you've got to do everything to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And you've got to do everything you can to respond even more quickly than you can even imagine if something like that happens. And I just think, you know, the work that's happened here, the policy work to get that kind of stuff to happen, the tug that's now out at Nia Bay that's been able to respond to distress signals over the last couple of years to prevent something from happening. and the legislation that was just passed this spring in the last few weeks in order to be more prepared. That's such critical work. That's getting you out in front of the issue before that issue even happens. And Politico just gave an award that is one of the best legislation, it was the best legislation, environmental legislation this year coming out of Olympia. So that's really exciting.